Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 14 of Wampa Radio. This is a podcast centered around Star Wars card games with a heavy focus on Unlimited by FFG. It's good to have you guys here. Welcome back. Doa, nice to see you, buddy.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to once again dive into the headlines, the strategies, the discussion points that you all out there want to hear about the world of Star Wars card games. It's good to be here. How about you, Charmer? I didn't know I needed to set you up. I thought you were ready to just jump in.
I was expecting Flake. He was giving that look like he had something funny to say, but it turned out he was just admiring my Smucker's face. So I guess I will take command of the situation and let everybody know that today on the episode we're going to be talking about the command aspect because, of course, it was just recently covered by Fantasy Flight Games. But before we jump into the main topic, of course, we have to take a trip to the cave, so let's talk about the Wampa Cave Poll of the Week.
Yes, it's not that I didn't want to lead you in, Charmer. I just figured it through the natural progression. But I know you're very good at just stewing in these pauses and making me feel so uncomfortable. Not because of the silence, but because of your stare, your Smucker's grin. Right there it is. That's precisely it. And now mostly, you know what? I think the good thing about Doa being here, not because of obviously his charm, his personality, his expertise, is because I now have a buffer to pass things through to get to Charmer. An extra layer between us, which I think is sometimes necessary. But yes.
Hey, you can never be too safe, you know?
The cave poll of the week will have to wait for a minute or two, because the cave poll that was supposed to be the Ahsoka related question, are we all caught up on Ahsoka?
Yeah, I am.
Charmer?
Are you, Charmer? Pause.
So I'm actually ashamed to say I have not watched the most recent episode.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, it got a lot better.
I had everything ready to go, and then we had a conflict schedule, me and my wife, and I'm trying to not watch without her. So I am through episode 3.
All right.
Well,
we won't talk about it then.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it because I think we have to talk about episode 4, and we're not going to do that. So we'll save the spoilers for next week. But it is a valiant move for you to wait for your wife. And I know
it's funny that you guys mention it, because last night there was a point where I was like, maybe I should just watch it in case we want to talk about it, and then I just won't tell her.
No,
don't do that.
Not safe. No. danger abort. Bad idea.
That's a smart move. When I was my ex-girlfriend, when we were dating, just haphazardly asked her, I'm like, what's the most awful feeling of betrayal that you would ever, and she said, if you watch any episode of any show that we are watching together, that would be the ultimate thing of betrayal. And I said, really? I'm like, what about if like breaking stuff, like infidelity, all this other stuff? She's like, that is probably less than if you were to say, yeah. I was like, no problem. I never in my life have I ever ventured to watch an episode of anything without my significant other's approval. Mm-hmm. So again, that's purely a safe move. So I don't think there's any. We'll skip over it. We'll talk about Ahsoka next week. Is that fair?
Yeah, I will be caught up 100% for sure next week.
Beauty. In which case, the Wampa Cave Poll of the week, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go check it out, is always up on Sundays at Wampa Radio on Twitter. But the Cave Poll this week, which got a lot of friction, my friends, and the Cave Poll was, what iconic weaponry from Star Wars do you want to see in Unlimited FFG's Spark of Rebellion, which is the name of the new set? Now, the options in order of appearance is Proton Torpedo, Vibro Axe, the DL-44 Heavy Blaster, which is what Han Solo uses, and the Mandalorian Flamethrower, which has become a lot more popular in a lot of the newer things. Now, a lot of that friction that I'm talking about is because a lot of people were like, what, know this, know this, know this. And again, we're limited to the 4 options. And what I should have done.
So many on Twitter. Yeah.
Well, Exactly. And I said, I'm like, look, if I wanted to please everyone, I would put like 27 options up there, and we'd have the winner would be the one with like 3 votes. So we can't do that. But I do regret not putting the thermal detonator on here.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll take a bullet for that one, because I thought this one up, and I thought up a lot of the options. So I did not even think about the thermal detonator. I was thinking of more like active weapons, that you hold and use, not necessarily that you threaten, throne rooms of vile gangsters with necessarily.
I think that's fair. However, when you talk about hold and use, proton torpedoes up there, and all I can think about is you just holding one over your head and just overhead tossing it like a.
You're not gonna miss the little the ventilation shaft in the Death Star if you're just like standing over it, just dunking.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
like, that would have been so much cooler at the end of New Hope, actually, if Luke would have just like popped the cockpit and then just like taken a proton torpedo and just like slam dunked it into the shaft. Yeah.
But it's Magic Johnson who's in a Y-wing behind you, just behind the back, passing it for the alley-oop dunk.
That's right. Yeah. And Larry Bird is like, let's blow this thing, go home. Yep.
Personally, I think instead what it should have been is Luke riding the torpedo, like Dr. Strangelove style.
There you go. How I learned to give up and love the proton torpedo.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of people get that wrong. They say photon torpedo. No, that's Star Trek, my friends. It is proton torpedo in Star Wars. Get it right. Yeah.
Bunch of donkeys.
Dunk on the Death Star with it.
Dude, that's what I want to see.
Not?
I think, and you know what? Because I've been watching a lot of the HBO series Winning Time, which is the rise of the Lakers dynasty, which is an excellent series, by the way. Whether you are or are not a basketball fan, of which I am, and I'm also a Lakers fan, so this is awesome for me. But just watching it, all I can think of now is Magic Johnson behind the back passing it to Larry Bird with the easy layup into the ventilation shaft, looking at Vader and just the worst trash talk you've ever seen in your life. Something like, stick that in your ventilator and smoke it, like, or something like that.
It's like, I didn't even use my targeting computer. Well, that. Yep.
Oh God!
A bunch of tech just to live. That Darth Vader.
All right,
you just got burned, but you're used to it.
Oh God!
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, so let's go with each of your options before we give the results, as usual. Sure. Charmer, you want to kick us off, buddy?
Yeah, sure. I actually voted for the Mandalorian flamethrower this time around, mostly because I was inspired by the card Boba Fett. The moment that I saw the subtitle incinerator, I was like, well, then we have to incinerate people in set 1, that's where I went. Yeah, it was disintegrator, not incinerator, but it's all the same. Your cinders at the end.
No disintegrations.
The Mandalorian does quite literally disintegrate Jawas in season 1 of the Mandalorian with his rifle. That's what that was a reference to that.
Incredible. First of all, again, the fact that like season 1 of the Mandalorian was probably it was probably some of the best Star Wars media out there. But the fact that they're like, oh, by the way, he's just gonna ruthlessly murder these Jawas. By the way,
did you see what they did to his ship?
Yeah, I get it. But I mean, he just and then he like tries to board it like a pirate ship. I
love it.
He just beat the piss out of him. I love it. It was so good. What about you? What did you select, Doa?
To be honest, I didn't vote in this one. I'm embarrassed to admit I missed it on the socials somehow, but I will tell you what I would have picked. And I would have picked the lowly Vibro Axe, because sometimes it's not all about our fancy modified blasters or our lightsabers or our starships. Sometimes you just got to use the weapon of, the grunt soldier, literally grunting if you're a Gamorrean guard in Jabba's palace, armed with the Vibro Axes, obviously. And then again, like, certain vibro blades are capable of taking on lightsaber blades too. So you've got that going for you, right? It's an option. So I would go with that.
And the Weequay skiff guards and such, like the Weequays were also armed with those. I think that's what he used.
That back though. Vibro weapons, can they deflect lightsabers?
I think you might be thinking of like force pikes and such like that.
Yeah. It's in a similar family of weapon, I suppose, but not quite the same thing. But either way,
I think you're confusing vibranium shields, not vibro axes.
Oh, now we're crossing universes.
yeah.
I mean, you brought in the photon torpedo earlier, so I'm just following suit.
Yep. Cooking technology. We can talk about that next. It is mentioned in the OT. But anyway, continue. Yeah.
We should do an entire episode of like, okay, let's just do these dream matchups, like the USS Enterprise versus like.
Oh no, not that.
No,
again.
we're not doing it. Okay. I selected the DL-44 Heavy Blaster. It's Han Solo's iconic weapon, and what I wanted to see is because I don't think that it's going to be an over-the-top kind of powerful weapon such as the lightsabers were as upgrades in this game. But I think that I want to see weapons that you can just chuck on anybody that will have an effect, like a basic upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't want, like a proton torpedo sounds cool. Maybe it's something, a proton torpedo in the game might be something like you put it on an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or any Rebel starfighter, and if it's attacking a capital starship, it increases the attack by, its attack goes up by 5 or something. I don't know. Long story short, the DL-44 Heavy Blaster, it is burnt into my mind, much as Greedo is totally Crispa on the floor of the cantina. It's an iconic weapon, and I just want to see it because I'm a Han Solo stan. That's it. There's no other science to it. That's all I want to see.
It's fair. I'd be shocked if we didn't get that in the first set. Honestly, if we're gonna, I would imagine. I mean, we don't know obviously, but if I were designing an initial set, I would like to have all the mains and their signature weapons as upgrades. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Star Wars CCG mains and toys deck. Let's
there you go. Yep.
I want to just say really quick, because we're talking about the Vibro Axe on there instead of, let's say, the thermal detonator. I believe that the Vibro Axe has more screen time than a thermal detonator. Could that be? Other than Jabba's palace, where Boushh uses the thermal detonator and threatens Jabba to expedite the bargain.
Sure.
Is there not more screen time of a Vibro Axe than? I could be wrong.
I would agree, because you've got more. I mean, in the whole Jabba's palace sequence where you do see Vibro axes in the OT, like, you see guards holding him, you see people on the skiffs later on in the Sarlacc scene holding him. So a lot more, overall.
There's Lando has one when he's dressed up as a guard, right?
Yeah, when he's disguised.
We need Lando's Vibro axe.
He's disguised as Tamtel Screech is the name.
That's right.
Yep, Tamtel Screech, but he did have a Vibro axe. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Tamtel Screech. Thank you, Star Wars CCG.
Exactly. It was Tamtel Screech from Jabba's Palace, the set, which was supposed to be like one of the big hits in the set. It's a shitty card. I don't know how else to say it.
I've got a box of unopened Jabba's boosters right behind me there.
I dare you to open one right now. Are you open one right on stream and open a
Tamtel? Open one right now. The funny thing is, it came into a shop down in California, and it was a box. The box was open, and it had all the boosters except for one. It was missing a booster. So yeah, I'll open one right now.
I'll open one. Let's do it. Let's open one right now. See, that's the kind of show we put on here.
All right, this is it. Here's a sealed Jabba's Palace booster, because we're talking about Star Wars card games, right?
I'm gonna lose my mind if he opens a Screech. I'm just throwing that out there.
If this is Tamtel Screech, that would be incredible, right?
If this is Tamtel Screech, then life makes sense.
Let me give you a little bit of background. It's a 9-card booster. This has been sealed since the year 1998. So,
oh my God, it's 25 years old, man.
I know, and we're opening it right now. I'll do it right on stream. Here we go.
Incredible. Yeah. Now, this I think
this is content.
This is the least coveted of the sets.
I just dropped all the cards.
Do you not remember how to open these packs?
Well, I've never opened them like holding it up in front of me before. Hold on. I'm not looking at
what do I have? I actually have a whole bunch back here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, we have all of them. Okay, so I can't verify the order of the cards anymore. I'm just glad I didn't drop it in my coffee. There you go. But okay, so here's the pack. What do we got? We have Whipped, one of the aliens. There we go. We have CZ4. I have to hold it kind of back so it's in focus. We have Deveronian. Remember these guys?
Oh yeah, the
Devil guys.
devil dudes.
We have a Gran. Yeah. We have, speaking of upgrades and weapons, we have an anti-personnel laser cannon. There you go.
And Telltale Screech.
We have the used interrupt, someone who loves you. Oh. We have a creature. We have Wart. There we go.
Nice.
And we have a weak way hunter. Oh, it's not Telltale Screech, but we did get Princess Leia Organa. It is a main.
Wow.
We've managed to just off the top. We crack a main in a box that has not been touched in 25 years. There we go.
Arguably the best card in the set.
I think
it is one of the best cards in the set. Yeah.
Well done. Pack fresh.
Pack fresh. Wow, I should put like a card cover on this or something.
Incredible. Here, let me put. Yeah, I got a penny sleeve. Let me just put it through the internet.
Do I have any around? I mean, I've got these. I don't know if I don't want to take those out of the package.
I don't think so. Well,
let's see.
That is incredible. I am.
Yeah, I know, right?
I am
seriously
over the moon that actually worked out the best way. Let's get to the results there. That
was no sleight of hand. Seriously.
Graded ones are on eBay for 160. So put that thing in a case.
Incredible.
I was just gonna say, I think that's the best card in the set because it was the least desirable set, but that was everybody's favorite pull.
Yeah, you can stop opening packs from that
I have
box.
Nearby are the Heart of Fjendal sleeves, so we'll be using that
from Pro Tour 1.
There we go. Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
so you can then just put that entire box to bed because I don't think there's anything further.
I was gonna say. I wasn't gonna open any more packs anyway. It's just kind of sitting there as like a thing, but you dared me to, so I did. I can't believe we actually got a main out of that.
Incredible.
That's hilarious. This is the kind of content people come for, right? Boom.
So here are the results from the poll, which are the winner by a wide margin at 69.4%. The DL44 Heavy Blaster. So everybody on the same wavelength. Let's see Han blast some stuff. Second place is what Charm3r wanted, which was the Mandalorian Flamethrower at 16.1%. The Proton Don't Call Me Photon Torpedo, 9.7%. And coming in last, the should have been a thermal detonator, Vibroax at 4.8%. Everybody wants to see some pew-pew, some big-time Han shot first action. Can't complain.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Well, I agree with what you said earlier, where it could be a card that would, just like Luke's lightsaber, go extra well on the main, but then still usable by others. So
this has inspired me. Should we do a giveaway for a pack of Jabba's Palace? I have a spare one. I will give one away. I will send one out. Should we do that? We'll do that for next episode. So if you're listening to this,
okay,
is that fair? Or
it's your pack.
It is my pack. How about this? Let's do this for somebody who's listening to this right now. If you can comment in the YouTube video, in the YouTube video comments, the best way to use a Vibroax that isn't as a weapon. Is that fair?
No.
No.
They're a family-friendly channel, sir.
Okay.
No comment.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Well,
all right. Forget it. Scrap it.
Wow. Lovely weather we've been having lately.
We'll just do a Twitter thing again. I'm sorry. We'll just do another. The humidity's getting to me. We'll do a Twitter thing. Forget what I said. Let's move to the headlines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
do that.
Okay.
How about those headlines?
Charm3r, you do it. I can't.
Yeah, so Fantasy Flight Games had a live stream recently, and they were discussing Command, the aspect, and they also released an article as well. So if you missed the show, you can check out the article. They are doing a recap of all of the different aspects leading up to the release of the game. Obviously, they've done Vigilance in the past. They did that one snippet on the importance of heroism and villainy and how they won't crisscross, etc. But this time it was Command. The live stream featured Josh Massey, who is the organized play manager, Tyler Parrott, MJ Cuts, and they gave us quite an overview as well as revealed some new cards. And some of the new cards I think are actually very fun. But the thing that really jumped out to me, and I tweeted about it immediately, was this is going to be something that as their kind of aspect identity. We might call it color identity because we're kind of already doing that. This is going to be something about resources, and then also your resource generation, meaning the resources used to pay for cards, but then also making lots of units that are potentially smaller, or drawing lots of cards. So like that as a resource mechanic as well. And I got really excited when I saw ramp, because it's one of my favorite things to play in card games, just as a general rule.
But they don't call it ramp. They call it resource acceleration. And you had your own
right.
acronym.
That's why I said resource acceleration means power in all caps. And then it was just RAMP, ramp.
I took it more as a Lionel Hutz version, which is resource acceleration ? More, please! ! Ramp.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I will say, though, I do fear ramp in card games, because it is one of those things that can get out of control very quickly from a balance perspective. We've all played a lot of different card games over the years, and we've all seen metas where it's like the deck that can just build to the stronger thing fastest is usually the strongest deck. So you got to be careful. I think every card game needs some ramp. You need some resource cheating going on, but you have to be really, really cautious about how you implement that, I think. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this one.
Well, we'll talk a bit more about them as well, but it's also worth noting that what they did mention in this stream that isn't command related was that they were discussing the concept of essentially land destruction, disrupting your opponent's resources, things like Stone Rain, etc. from Magic. What they want to avoid is that they said that resource generation, resource destruction effects are no fun. They create negative game experiences. They're trying not to implement that for this set, but who knows down the line. Now, again, they're avoiding it for now. It might become a necessity, like you mentioned, because if this becomes a situation where ramp is a tier 1 deck and only gets better with more cards coming out, then you'll have to print something that is like destroy one of your opponent's resources. Like it's almost a necessary evil, wherein then we get back into the talk of the merits of a sideboard and formats, which is a whole other discussion. But
I will say there are some clever ways that you can attack it from a game design perspective, because one of the things that is dangerous about land destruction, and I think it's what they're trying to avoid, is that if you destroy somebody's lands, then they like never get to play the game. And it's even more punishing in a game like Magic the Gathering, for example, where you have to draw your lands, so you can be locked out for multiple turns. In this game, you always have access to making resources, and you're drawing 2 cards per turn. However, it can still create some very unfun moments in the early game if that's all that's happening. So what I would like to see, if they ever do print one, would be something along the lines of, if your opponent has more resources than you, then you can destroy one. So that if they are specifically ramping, it's your way to slow them down, but not necessarily the way where you just keep things, permanently kind of suppressed.
Is that too sideboardy, though? We had the sideboard conversation. I think we were all kind of on the side of we'd rather not see sideboards in this game. So
you were on
would
that
something
side.
Like that be too sideboardy? I was on that side, yeah.
So one of the ways that I also think you can tackle that, and I was kind of going to wait, I think, a little bit later to talk about this, but we'll just tie it in right now, is that we've already seen that they're okay with printing cards with multiple options. So I do think that it would be kind of cool. We got to see the Vigilance card later. We're going to talk about the Command card that was revealed. I would like to see it just be something that's an option where you have a bunch of, minor or kind of like cantrip effects, so that you are still encouraged to kind of keep a Swiss Army knife in your deck, but it's not something that is like game breaking in any direction. And I think that's the way that you kind of design around potentially not doing a sideboard.
I agree. Yeah. That's how I was going to do it. They're definitely not afraid to have a choose one or many style cards, which I think are important. So having something like that as kind of like a fix-all type card, I think is perfectly fine.
Would much prefer that, yeah.
Next month's stream will be Aggression. So looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like, definitely. But how about those new cards? Start off with the new cards. And let's start off with Skeletor himself. We have a brand new leader.
A bit, yeah.
Come on, I mean, I get it. What is his name? Not Charles Dance. Charles Dance is the guy who I think should play another Imperial officer. But
oh my gosh, why am I'm just looking it up.
Yeah,
'cause I can't remember his name either.
Either way, it's Grand Moff Tarkin with the most pronounced cheekbones ever.
Wilhoff Tarkin is the character name, but
Peter Cushing,
actor Peter Cushing.
Okay,
Peter Cushing.
Thank you. So he has
I'm embarrassed that I forgot that.
He's the command leader, command villainy. Grand Moff Tarkin has the action of costing 1 and exhausting it. Give an experience token to an Imperial unit. So it's basically pay 1, give somebody permanent +1/+1. Beyond that, the epic action, if you control 5 or more resources, deploy this leader. On attack, you may give an experience token to another Imperial unit. So it's all part of the Imperial tribal. It's a 2/7. 7 body seems to be the bare minimum of these leaders. I don't know if there's anything less than that we have so far, but 7 is like probably the going rate. What are your thoughts on Grand Moff Tarkin and this whole, command being a class that is meant to reward board presence and board development?
It seems like they talked about this in the stream a little bit too, that there's sort of little different flavor tweaks between good guy command and bad guy command. Whereas villain command, bad guy command seems to be more about putting these experience tokens on things, buffing things. I forget which developer mentioned it, but they kind of were leaning towards the idea of villain command being more going tall, creating like a big character that's hard to deal with. Whereas hero command seems to be geared a little bit more towards restore, and like bringing your base back up, defending, that kind of thing. So that seems to be kind of the indication from what we've seen so far.
I think that it could be potentially going tall. I feel like it actually might be potentially in another direction, which is going tall, but not for the sake of just making a big unit. A lot of the other things that we've seen so far from like villainy command are have a resource deal its damage to something. So for me, it's almost like powering up your fleet to take advantage of the aspects, the actions within the aspect. I really feel like this, something we haven't talked about with the archetypes is that there's different types of ways that you can play control in card games. And I think that this is going to be setting us up for what I would call board style control, where you're creating these big units both to like attack into other units, obviously, but also to trigger a lot of the actions that we've seen so far within the game. And he just kind of facilitates that.
He's a common as well. And I don't know if that plays into anything, but this does give us a little bit more clue in terms of like limited and drafting. If this is just in a common slot, I think drafting leaders is going to be like, okay, you could draft the leader or you get stuck with perhaps whatever the token leaders are. Again, it's still pretty murky in terms of what limited's going to look like. We'll find out, I think, on September 27th when the next stream is, which I believe digs into rarity and pack composition. I think that's what the next stream is going to be, but that'll be a better primer for us to talk about the implications of like limited value and such. But he looks angry, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be fairly exciting to play this style and be giving a lot of tokens to things. And what's interesting is that it feels like you have a little bit more control over where the tokens go to a certain extent with a lot of these cards. So I think that'll give you a lot of options, in the moment to put things on the right place. Gives you a lot of options to make mistakes as well. So I like anything with card games that presents more decision points within the game. So cool implementation. We'll see. And Tarkin's such a iconic, love to hate him kind of character, right? So
you mentioned
obviously
Charles Dance. Yeah, I can't help but look at this, and I think that this art reminds me of Bill Nighy. This might be the Bill Nighy version of Tarkin.
When you said Bill Nighy, I thought of Bill Nye.
I was going to say Bill Nye, the science guy. No.
Yeah. Let's
Bill Nighy.
I'm not even
know.
sure who that is. I could be wrong.
Not
but
sure who that is either. Yeah. Wait, hold on.
Kidding me?
I don't want to Google it.
Bill. Bill.
You're gonna see. Oh, that guy. I know it.
No, let me see. Bill Nye.
Was he ever? He never did play Tarkin though, did he?
No, he hasn't done anything in Star Wars, and I think that's
he was in Harry Potter.
Opportunity.
Oh, he was Davy Jones as well. Oh, okay.
Okay,
well,
so I am looking at his like.
I could see him being Tarkin.
His filmography here. I haven't seen any of these movies.
You've never seen like Shaun of the Dead?
Oh, I've seen. Yes,
Underworld?
he was okay. Shaun of the Dead. The first thing I thought of was literally he looks like the dad from Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, but now I know. But like I didn't know the dude's name.
Underworld too, right? Like
Never seen it.
What?
I haven't seen those either.
Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't think I've seen those either. Underworld.
Never
I haven't
seen the
it.
Pirates of the Caribbean stuff. Wow.
Nope. Love Actually. Haven't seen it. What else is he in?
I haven't seen Love Actually.
Harry Potter. Haven't seen it. Jack the Giant Slayer.
What do you do with your time?
Rewatch the same Star Wars movies.
I guess.
Rewatch Seinfeld.
Well, that too. Yeah, rewatch Seinfeld 80 times. Literally, the only movies that he has done is that I have seen, and I'm going through like we're into like 20 or 30 deep now. Is I've seen Hot Fuzz about a dozen times, and I've seen Shaun of the Dead about a dozen times. That's it.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen any of these other movies he's done. So that's this whole Bill Nighy thing. I was like, who the hell are you talking about? But yeah.
So Rugged Survivors.
Let's just go with it. Go with it.
The Rugged Survivors. It's our second card that was revealed fairly recently. This is not a command card. This is, in fact, a vigilance card, as you can see. 3/5 comes out for 5, has the good old grit keyword, which means it gets +1 for each damage on it. And on attack, if you control a leader unit, you may draw a card. So again, this is when your leader is out on the board, when it is in its unit form, because a leader is always out, but it's not always out as a unit. So if it is, you can get some card generation with this card. So it's going to be interesting to see how useful a card like this is. Again, it's a common, comes in at a very low power. It does power up via grit, but it is expensive at 5. And will the card draw at the stage in the game this card comes out be worth playing it in your deck? That's kind of the question I have when I look at it. But it's a card that does a lot of things. For a common, there's a lot going on in this one card, so it's neat in that regard, I think.
I think this just goes back to the fact that anytime you draw cards in a game, that's a powerful effect. It's only a common, but I think that this is going to be in a very strong limited card because of the card draw effect. Sure, you get the card draw no matter what as soon as your leader's on the board, but the fact that it also has grit, this could potentially be a 7 attack like at the end of the day because of the grit, right? So
it could be more. So I actually really like that we're talking about this after just talking about Grand Moff Tarkin, because one of the things that we have not really been mentioning whenever we bring up the grit keyword is the presence of experience tokens, right? So the experience tokens, they can be +1/+1, but on units with grit, once you get them into combat, it could be the same as like +2/+0, right? If you just take the damage, but you get the bonus attack. And so I actually think these Rugged Survivors are going to be fantastic and limited.
Can't argue there. Let's go to the next one. We're back to command, and these were all revealed. Oh, I got to double check who revealed the Rugged Survivors. I want to make sure that I get that correct. I want to make sure the right people get credit for Rugged Survivors. This one was it was previewed by FFG. So too bad.
Okay.
They get no love. But
there you go. Give them credit anyway.
Prepare for takeoff. Walk us through this one, Doa.
Oh, all right. It is a event. It's a plan specifically. It's always good to have a plan or two. Search the top 8 cards of your deck for up to 2 vehicle cards, reveal them, and draw them. Put the other cards on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So, paying 2, right? Keep this in mind. Paying 2 to then search the top 8 cards of your deck. That is a lot of searching in a 50-card deck, which I believe is the deck size for this game. And then finding 2 vehicle units. So again, this is something geared towards a very vehicle-heavy deck. Even if, you could get away with less being, vehicle-focused because this top 8, I suppose. That's a big amount of your deck after you've already drawn your cards for your first turn, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, it definitely helps you prepare theoretically your next couple turns to get the right vehicles out in the way you want them. So in terms of being a plan, a good plan, I think this definitely works. And I would love to have the ability to say, I'm going to make a vehicle deck based on this. I'm going to make a ground deck based on this. And I mean, vehicles can be space, they can be ground, but I love the idea of saying I'm just playing mech and I'm ignoring things that walk on two legs, except for maybe ATSDs, and I'm just going vehicles, right? So that'd be fun. I'm excited about what can be done potentially with this card. It enables a strategy, is basically what it can do in theory.
I actually think it enables multiple strategies. That's why I like it. So this could very well be a swarm deck hand refill option, right? Imagine a deck where you're playing like a bunch of TIE fighters or something like that. You empty your hand fast, and then you want to just get a bunch more cheap units, continue the go wide strategy. The other end of the spectrum is you might be playing a deck where you really only care about one unit, and it happens to be a vehicle. Being able to pay 2 to look at 8 cards to try to find it is almost like a just straight up tutor with a 50 card deck. But because you put the other cards on the bottom, even if you don't find it, you've now went 8 cards deeper into your deck trying to find your combo piece. So if we have any decks that are built around a central vehicle unit, this is a great way for you to dig for it, even if you don't find it.
Well,
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. A very good point. And the 8 cards, keep in mind, that's 16% of your deck. So you can look at the top 16% of your deck. Keep in mind, you've already drawn up a bunch. So you're probably looking at that point, if this is your turn 1 play, let's say, you're looking at probably 20 to 21% of your remaining cards in your deck, which is incredible. Most Magic cards that do something like this, like a lot of those blue 2-cost cards, are look at the top 4 and take a card and then put the rest at the bottom. So being able to look at 8 and putting 2 in your hand is incredible. Like Charm3r said, I see this more as a swarm style replenish. You pay 2, you might have like 5 resources only, but if everything you're playing costs 1, 2, or 3, you'll look through it and be like, okay, I'm going to pay 1 card to get 2, which is really good. And it's not garbage. You get to choose what you want. But at the same time, I also see the other option here, which is the fact that command is going to be heavy into ramp style stuff. If your whole plan is to find home 1 or to find a Star Destroyer, then dude, you're going to want to play this, because if that's your end game, or Charm3r, the Death Star, who knows, this is what you need to play in order to find it. And I think that prepare for takeoff is probably going to be passed around a lot in draft, but in constructed, this card is going to be very, very important.
Yeah, you just show your opponent, a big Star Destroyer or home 1 or something, and you're putting him on a clock, right? Because presumably you'd only be doing that if you had other ramp stuff, in your hand, or likely to come up soon anyway. So yeah.
But sometimes
you can be like, hey, it's coming.
Sometimes it's not in that top 8, and playing that card could feel like a trap, much like our next card.
Oh,
Charm3r, would you like to give us our next one?
It's a trap. Admiral Akbar is our next card. So this is a 3-cost ground unit. It is heroism in command, like you would expect. A 1/4 stat line for a rebel official. Does, however, have restore 1. However, also has, when played, you may deal damage to a unit equal to the number of units you control in its arena. That is pretty powerful. Obviously, it's a minimum 1 to a unit in the ground arena, right? He's a ground unit. You play him in the ground, you always have at least 1 unit because he's going to count himself. But this is, again, one of those cards where you can develop your board presence while also kind of chipping away at your opponents. It can help you kind of turn the tide. And the fact that it's not limited to the ground arena, right? So if you've got starships and they're trying to contest it, this allows you to develop in your ground area while also continuing to exert control in the space arena, for example. So this is, I think, going to be a really multifaceted card. And the Restore 1 is very relevant as well.
I can see how this card can be valuable on curve in, you play 1 or 2 units early and then you drop them to destroy what their development is. And then you could start restoring, etc. It's obviously not a ground and pound unit. It's a 1 attack, 4 body, 3 drop, which is understated in that regard. So you're really leaning on the fact that you're getting value out of the deploy effect. I just want to go off the board real quick and mention that this artwork I think is my favorite so far in the entire set. There's so much,
a great image,
right? Look what's going on behind him. It's incredible, and he's there, just kind of like doing like one of these, like oh, and he's also just kind of directing the rest of his bridge crew, and in the middle of what is obviously the most dire circumstances for the Rebel Alliance ever, and he's just full boss mode. I love this art so much.
Yeah, I think the card too pairs really well with the one we just looked at, Prepare for Takeoff, right? If we are talking about that swarm strategy option there, you can spend a couple turns, putting a bunch of different things in the space arena, and then dropping Admiral Akbar and just picking off one of your opponent's ships possibly, or doing some damage to something to let another one of your units finish it off. So I think specifically if you are going to run that sort of lots of X-wings, lots of that kind of thing deck, him and the next card we're going to look at are going to be both cards you're putting in there for sure.
And this doesn't have to necessarily target a ground area, right? Like you can drop them on the ground. If you're just commanding in space, you got like 4 or 5 units in space, you just drop them and be like, you give the order, smash it up. Feels good.
Yep. Dunk him with a proton torpedo.
Okay, so I have been dishing out these cards because I really want to do the next one, which is going to allow one of you two to fight over the big one. But I would love to do the next one.
You can do the next one. I just need you to know up front, this is my favorite art so far.
Oh, it is another great piece of art.
Much like Doa, I'm a sucker for big space battles.
Damn right. Oh, yeah. Damn right. So let's zoom out of the previous card, because where he is just pulling up heavy in that whip itself, home freaking one. Finally, we get the big boys. Home one appears, which is, again, the Alliance flagship. It is an 8-drop command and heroism aspect, 7/7, a Rebel vehicle capital starship. It has Restore 2 built in. Also, each other friendly unit gains Restore 1. When played, play a heroism unit from your discard pile. It costs 3 less. Holy moly. This is also a legendary, so we can definitely see why this thing packs a punch. The artwork is absolutely brilliant. You're not wrong about it, but we get the end game piece, which is you can play this. Now, if you want, you can grab like an X-wing, you can grab something else out of the thing just to kind of show up to the party with it at a discount. Beyond that, everything else gets Restore 1. Much like, again, if like we always do, we're going to look at this thematically. When this shows up to the party, everything turns, everything changes. You were playing from behind, now you start clawing back because the big boy's here. You start gaining back that confidence, that life total. Your base starts getting bigger, better, badder. And gosh dang it, do I love the home one.
I mean, it is, it's Admiral, theoretically, it's Admiral Akbar's ship, right? And it just so happens that you can bring Admiral Akbar back for free if he's in the discard pile and you drop it. So that is the synergy we're looking for. That is, it's his ship, so it should bring him back. If he's not around when his ship shows up, he will be, right? So you love to see that too, because again, it's another thing where you can, drop Akbar down. The flagship comes in, augmenting everything else in the fleet that's going on in space. I love the idea of all that. You've got big things like Restore 2, and Admiral Akbar has Restore 1. So suddenly you're also showing up with a pretty good amount of Restore, Plus you're giving another friendly unit Restore 1. You can give that to Akbar when you bring him back, right? So, or it says each other friendly unit actually. So yeah, I mean, you're going to be restoring a lot of health. It's a good thing. I was a little bit sad when I saw the power and toughness, and then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I guess Home One really is only about as big as like an Imperial class Star Destroyer anyway. It's like it's nothing compared to the Executor and all that. Their Executor. I've been calling it
Oh,
Executor since like I was a kid.
but
I
that's what
can't
it's
change
called.
anytime soon.
It's called the Executor.
But everyone tries to tell me it's Executor. Like you're executing something. I always saw it as Executor, like you're controlling everything as if you are the executive
That's what
of
it
the
is.
Empire.
Plus-
which is I don't know why my middle school self would think of it that way, but I did.
Plus, the word executioner exists, which is the correct term. So
Exactly.
Right.
So I think it is Executor.
it is
I've always
Executor.
believed that. Yeah, but people keep trying to tell me it's Executor, like you're executing. I'm like, I don't think so, but that seems to be such like a prevalent thought right now.
Charmer, what is it?
It's the Executor.
I swear to God.
Executor?
I actually have a question.
It is
So
it is
adorable.
a Executor in my opinion because as you said, executioner is a word that exists.
Yeah, so why are we
and-
inventing them?
Someone who executes is not called an executor. You know, it's an executioner.
The
Yeah.
person who gives the command to do so is the executor. However,
Right.
the person who is committing the execution is an executioner, not an
Right. The
whatever.
executor gives the executioner the order to execute.
Perfect, and that's it. I actually have a rules question about this.
Okay.
The stacking of Restore 1, can it does Akbar now become Restore 2, or does one superimpose over the other and you can only take the greater of the two, therefore always 1? I'm
I
really
would
curious
read it
about
as
that.
I would personally read it as additive. I don't think they said anything about that, but I mean, I think you look at you look at a card, and I was actually talking to someone earlier from Fantasy Flight about this type of rules thing, and they said, well, we want you to be able to, we want the cards to be intuitive, right? You look at it, you read it, and it does what you think it would do, So I take that as, in my opinion, as saying this would be additive, right? If I have a card that has Restore 1 and another card that gives a unit Restore 1, but I don't know. I honestly don't know for sure. So don't take my word for it. That's just how I would interpret it.
All right. How do you feel about the card, Charmer?
I mean, the card as a whole, I think is fantastic. I think Home One is exactly the sort of bomb that you kind of want to build toward, especially because it's thematic, but also what I really like about it is the on play, you get the other smaller unit, right? A lot of times when you're playing these kind of either slower control decks or things like that, you are sometimes incentivized to wait playing some of your key units. Like, for example, Admiral Akbar, right? You might be incentivized to wait and not play him on curve, but now this is giving you the option to say, no, like still have fun with the game, play your stuff early, get in those skirmishes, and then you'll still get to live the dream of Home One with Admiral Akbar or whoever. So I really appreciate that. I also kind of like that this is both a wide and tall strategy, right? The Home One and Admiral Akbar effects give you a bigger bonus if you are wide, right? The more units you have, the more damage you deal with Admiral Akbar. The more units you have, the more units get Restore. But also, you want to kind of go tall or ramp to get to playing Home One faster. So just overall, I think that it hits a home run in terms of theme and design, and I'm a big fan.
What do you think, though? Does Admiral Akbar get Restore 2 instances of Restore 1, or does one just sort of like supersede the other,
Well,
thus resulting in only one?
Star Wars CCG had the rules that things did not add up unless it had the word cumulatively. But it's, for example, like if you give a card lifelink in Magic and then another card gives it lifelink, does it have twice as much lifelink?
So
Well, that's a keyword thing, though.
Sure,
Not
but
a
this-
number thing. Yeah.
here's my take on it. While I do understand why a lot of folks would look at that and think it additive, that was my initial response as well, was to think like, oh, okay, well, with Admiral Akbar, it should be Restore 2. The more that I look at it, I think that it's probably going to mean that Admiral Akbar still only has Restore 1, because the restore keyword is written as restore 1, not restore +1. And so I don't think that there is any sort of addition. I think that it's just if you don't have restore 1, you gain it. And if you already have restore 1, gaining restore 1 again doesn't do anything because you already had it. It would be like giving a unit overwhelm again, right? I think that's the way that they're going to approach it.
I lean towards that way.
I could see them doing it that way.
I lean towards you just take the bigger of the two, or you can choose. Like maybe you don't want to restore. You know, if Home 1 said give each of your units restore 2, that means that Admiral Akbar has restore 1 and restore 2, but you can only choose the whichever you want, which would be.
That seems even more complicated then.
Maybe again.
I'm thinking about from like a new player. I'm looking at this and I don't necessarily know everything deeply, you know.
Oh, see, in this case, read the card, explains the card, doesn't exactly work. So FFG, if you're listening to this, please give us a heads up on this.
There is that, but
the argument is that it could be additive in that it has, it has restore 1, and if it gains restore 1, then it's just on there twice, and so you activate it both times, right?
That's how I think of it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that okay. Maybe I'm sold on that.
When I say additive, I'm not. Yeah, that's more what I'm thinking is that it has 2 instances of restore 1.
Okay,
right. So, yep, because gaining restore 1 doesn't mean it loses the restore 1 it already has, but. And the thing is, with every card game, you're going to have rules that need to be explained. It's just the nature of the complexity of card games. But I am curious how they're going to rule that one. Because as far as I know, they haven't said anything on that topic yet. But maybe they will now.
Oh, I hope they comment on this video. Please let us know.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to know.
One of the things that I'm really liking about a lot of this, especially this combo of Akbar and Home 1, which is what you guys were talking about, especially you, Charm3r, when you're talking about waiting on a card to play it at the right time. Home 1 kind of allows you to liberally play Akbar. What I'm beginning to see here a lot more clearly is that FFG has created a game that they don't want to be stagnant. They don't want to be slow. They want you to jam your cards, start swinging, get those cards back, hunt for your big bombs, because I think what they're looking at here is, and I'm looking way ahead, is I think they want this to be a best of 3 game. Because and that's part of it. It's like if games are going to be under 20 minutes, then let's make sure that people have access. Like smaller deck at 50, you start with 2 resources. You're drawing 2 a turn, a lot of tutors, a lot of recovery effects, and a lot of damage being dealt. I think that this is a game that wants fireworks and wants resolution within in under 15 minutes, and I'm kind of all for that because. As people like you, like us 3, that have been so entrenched in Flesh and Blood, I mean, I'm a Guardian player. Charm3r, you're a Guardian player.
Oh, no. I'm the opposite.
Exactly. We are built. We are absolutely built for 45-minute games, like plus, every time. That's the expectation. So seeing something that is fast and furious like this is such a nice change of pace, but I'm still going to build a control deck, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I do wonder about the game like that. I think it's obviously it's going to be variable depending on the deck. Things like restore could theoretically extend the length of the game, but just from what I'm looking at, I'm kind of thinking the same thing that you are, where this is looking more like a best of 3 type game from the competitive perspective. But I kind of always have liked games where you just play one game for a tournament match. You know, I like when a game is deep enough and has enough decision points in it that you can determine the best player by just playing one game. But I agree. I think this is looking a little bit more like a best of 3 game to me. But I don't think they've said anything officially with that yet. So we'll have to wait and see. I could also see it just being a best of 1 type of thing if there's enough other cards that we see eventually that kind of lead to that, where it is going to extend the game, where you are returning a lot of stuff and you are healing a lot of stuff and extending the length of time it takes to kill a base. We'll see.
This is a star war, okay?
Not a star battle.
Yeah, it's just not a star skirmish.
I see.
All right, should I flip a coin on who wants to do the next one? Or
I think I did vigilance. So Charm3r, you do command then.
I'll take command of the situation and reach into that well again, mostly just to see Flake's response.
Oh my god!
So command, is the other legendary that was revealed. Obviously, Home 1, Legendary Unit Command, the legendary action for the Aspect Command. It is a 4-cost event that does have the 2 command symbols, so it's following in the footsteps of Vigilance, and it says choose 2 in any order. Give 2 experience tokens to a unit, so that helps with our go tall part. A friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to a non-unique enemy unit. So again, that reinforces my theory about the board presence being the form of control. We also have put this event into play as a resource, so that feeds the ramp game strategy. And finally, return a unit from your discard pile to your hand. So that it also fills that kind of like extend your resources thing. So I just really love this. I think all 4 of these are very on brand for the Aspect identity.
This card is, again, much like Vigilance was, this card is also such a house of a card because let's just go through them really quick. Give 2 experience tokens to a unit. Something's about to die, something on the board that looks like it's threatened. Let's just give it a little pat on the back. Let's give it a little lift. No problem. How about the next one? Friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to a non-unique enemy. That is removal that you could pair up with the 2 experience points to just crush something that needs crushing. But put this event into play as a resource. Frankly, this is kind of like if ramp, like late game, you're probably not going to do that one. But if there's nothing else to do that makes sense, that's a very good universal option. But what I like is the last one, because remember you're talking about, play the Akbar because you're going to get Home 1. No problem. Well, how about this? How about you play Command to get back Home 1, to get back Akbar, and suddenly you have an 12 resource turn that has generated you a nutty amount of value. Because you could play Command to put the Home 1 back into your hand and then use it as a resource to pay for the Home 1 that gets you the free Akbar that nukes something on the board, and suddenly you're back in the game, baby. I really like Command as an aspect. I really, really like Command as an aspect.
Yeah, it also costs 4, like Vigilance does. So, that if we can take a sample size of 2 as an indication, that seems to be the standard for these aspect kind of hallmark cards. So we'll kind of keep an eye out for that. Obviously, it does have the double command aspect, which can make it more expensive in certain situations. So you want to kind of keep that in mind from a deck building perspective. Paying 4 for it may be challenging in some situations. But either way, it's going to result in a big turn. I mean, and this is supposed to, right? They're supposed to be legendary cards. They're supposed to have a big impact. So I love the idea of being able to put it into play as a resource. I mean, that's just really nice to essentially get a discount on it, right? You pay for, you do one effect, and then you put it in play as a resource. So you kind of get like one of those back that you paid for it, which can lead to all sorts of other, good turn things. So yeah, there's a lot of different options. And again, I'm all about decision points. These cards give you a lot of choices out of one card, which I think is a lot of fun. And I think it increases, it ups the skill ceiling, of what you can do in a game, which is always good.
The art, too, is cool because it looks like Mon Mothma just found pepperoni on her vegetarian pizza.
What is this?
Yeah, she's like, are you freaking kidding me? What is this?
Honestly, art-wise, I'm gonna say I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I think you could use a little bit more detail in it. I think I understand sort of the painterly style they're going for with it, but I could use a little bit. It looks a little bit too rough to me. I have to be honest and say I'm not the biggest fan of the art on this card.
I think I just figured out who one of those random rebel commanders are in the back from Star Wars CCG. I think it's Walex Blissex. I know this is a deep ass cut. I'm gonna find the dude's card, and you tell me that this is not this dude. Let's see if I can't copy the image here for the file. Tell me that's not this guy. Oh, did you see it? Hold on, let me.
Wait. does. It does kind of.
I'm waiting to.
Yeah, scroll up. Scroll up back to the head of the headlines where the cursor is.
Yeah, totally.
Look, General
him.
Walex Blissex. That's gotta
our
be him. Yeah. So once again, we come back to the Holy Land that is Star Wars CCG, and these random actors are now gonna start collecting their residuals because their appearance, their likeness, has once again the resurrection of these people's careers. It's incredible.
We'll need a card for him too now.
I'm a little bit proud of myself for knowing this dude's name.
I didn't know that name. That is impressive. Like, I mean, I remember that guy standing back there, but I did not remember the card name. So props to you.
Thank
fun
you.
Fun factoid for the old Decipher Star Wars CCG. They were supposed to put little lore blurbs in each of the cards, and they asked Lucasfilm, like, well, do you have what do we put in these? Because we're doing all these obscure characters, and they were apparently told, I just make something up. So a lot of canon for Star Wars came from just random designers at Decipher making lore blurbs for some of these cards, which is great. Things have definitely changed for the Star Wars intellectual property since then, but I love that time existed, and we got all sorts of great stuff out of that. Like, for instance, the lore tidbit from Salacious Crumb, from Salacious Crumb's card, that he has to make Jabba laugh once per day at least, or he will die. Which is kind of a sad life, but also hilarious. So thank you, Decipher. Gone but not forgotten.
Oh gosh, would it be embarrassing if I told you I know probably the names of the 2 or 3 Mon Cal commanders in this? I think there's Generals Thanispi, there's Major Hashin back there as well. I could be wrong. I don't want to be the dude that is like, well, they all look the same, because that's a terrible thing to say. But still, I can't decipher which one is which, and pun intended on that one.
Just see if we had more detail, maybe we'd be able to see.
True. Still,
I'm just saying,
Mon Mothma looks like she hailed a cab and it drove right past her. So.
yeah, or someone, she was playing an online tournament. She noticed somebody maybe swiped something from off the webcam, right?
Oh yeah. What is this? This is a One Piece
hey.
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts on the card, Charmy boy?
I was just already in my head figuring out what altars I wanted made, and I wanted one made where instead of Mon Mothma, it's Mon Mothman saying like, "Where's my lamp?" That's where my brain was. I was already way off the rails. My internal monologue was correcting the art through altars.
And then
I was always curious as a kid too, if because you've got Moffs in the Empire. Was it Mons in the Rebel side? I know now that it's just that character's name. Her name is just Mon Mothma. But when I was a kid, you kind of wonder these things. You're like, does the Empire have Moffs and the Rebels have Mons? Why not? And for a long time too, when I was a kid, I thought it was Mom Mothma, and I was like, well, she kind of seems like the mom of the rebellion. She's kind of in charge of everything, but it's Mon. But I think I said Mom Mothma as a child for many years.
I want Norm Macdonald to tell the moth joke to her, because the light was on.
Well,
so I was on the other end. I always said Mon, but my issue was I watched a lot of Godzilla back then, so I used to say Mon Mothra, like as a Freudian slip, and then I couldn't stop.
And when you're done with the Death Star, take out Godzilla too.
I had a buddy that made fun of me every time we played the Star Wars CCG because I would say Mon Mothra like clockwork. I couldn't stop.
That sounds like a great altar as well. Yeah.
We'll have to contact our good friend Mara Faris to do this.
Faris, yeah.
Mothra Faris. All right, that is all the reveals, all the spoilers. Let's get into the topic, which is, of course, command. As an aspect in general, which is the fact that, well, hey, they're going to be going through one aspect per month. I think we've done, 3 of them already? We've done villainy, we've done command, and we've done vigilance. So we're getting closer.
I thought heroism and villainy were kind of
done. That's what I thought,
right.
We got a 2-for-1 there.
Yeah, you're right. Those were kind of a California dream in 2-pack.
Coming, which means cunning will be the last.
The funny thing is, we've seen a lot of cunning stuff already. That's just kind of, come out with the other reveals, via like playtests and things like that they've put up there. So I wonder what we're going to see for cunning, because I feel like we've seen a lot of cunning already.
I'm really hoping cunning is going to be all the gangster stuff plus all the I want to see
hunters.
bounty hunters are going to be the cunning ones. Maybe
Yeah.
we get, oh God, if we get Cad Bane, I will lose it. I would love to see Cad Bane.
Please tell me we get 2 Lando cards. We got to have 2 Lando cards. We need a cunning heroism Lando and a cunning villainy Lando, you know?
Ooh.
It's I think because he plays both sides and he is cunning throughout, so
That would be rad.
Yeah,
that one's free, Fantasy Flight. I stole that from the old card game.
It's
There were
true.
2 Landos.
Obviously. Yeah. But I mean,
3 if you count
fits.
Tempest
I
Reach,
do.
but, yeah.
I do like that. I also, as far as like just cunning stuff goes, I know we're already off the rails once again, but I just really hope we get Andor. Like, we got to have a cast.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I was just thinking a triple aspect card, villainy, command, cunning, Thrawn. Give me freaking Thrawn. I think that if you're gonna be restrictive in terms of your deploy costs by triple aspecting it, then you got to put your big baddies behind that. And to me, one of the biggest baddies outside of Palpatine, outside of Vader, it's Thrawn. And I will go to my grave thinking that Thrawn is probably the biggest threat to, you know, the New Republic, to whatever, you know, that as much as Palpatine was, as much as Vader was, Thrawn's up there.
I'm sure we're going to get Thrawn at some point. If we don't get him in the first set, which I wouldn't be surprised if we don't, because this seems more kind of classic era Star Wars, but like I'm sure we're going to get him at some point. He's too cool, and he's going to be in Ahsoka now. So, you know, I mean, he was canon, then he wasn't canon, now he's canon again. Now he's going to be in a show, so he'll be around. And this will finally we will have had both Mickelsons in Star Wars now. Both Mads and Lars.
Oh, now we just need Phil Mickelson in there.
Oh, yeah, that might be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, just shooting drives out the space lock, just like right out of the hangar.
We had pod racing, so why not space golf?
Dude, why not? Just put a ball, like a thermal detonator on a tee. It's like, we have one shot, bring in Phil. And he just shows up and just fires a 300-yard drive through like through the hangar into like the opposing spaceship. There's your thermal detonator. All right. Command, as described in the article by the developers, it's a aspect that is meant to promote and nurture things like board presence, resource acceleration. It cares about units. It cares about developing, growing your board, and nurturing and improving the units that you are developing. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, this sounds a lot like putting a lot of early game and late game improvement effects. So a lot of, 2 to 3 drops that your 6 and 7 drops are just going to immediately, like your Stormwind champion from Hearthstone, which is an arena just home run. You drop it on the board, everything gets better. We've seen it with Home 1, and I think that's what Command is looking to dig into.
I think Command is your TCG basics aspect, where it's it's all about the board, what you have on your board, how what you have interacts with what your opponents has, how you improve or get it back, that kind of stuff. This is your tempo TCG basics aspect, where this is the one where I think this will, if you're a new player to card games, this aspect will teach you the fundamentals, I think, the best in terms of board interaction and state. So yeah, it's cool to see. I think it's going to be an aspect a lot of people are going to build around. And again, like bearing, whatever comes out in the other aspects, but it's just solid, right? It's got so many good core fundamental things for card games wrapped up in it. So yeah, strong.
I think TCG basics is a great way to describe it. I also think that it's going to be really just sticking to exactly what the aspect title implies, which is you're going to likely have a bunch of small units and then a couple of big ones that just enhance everything, because it's all about commanding an army, right? You need a bunch of smaller army units to have your commander be in command of, or your capital starship or whatever your big payoff is. I do think that it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, just because, again, this is an attacker chooses targets card game, which means all of those little units, theoretically, you could just ignore them if you're the other player and try to go aggressive and then potentially outrace their big payoff, right? I do think that that's one of the ways they're going to balance this. And one of the reasons why I don't think that the resource acceleration will be too big of a problem. I think it'll still be very powerful. But I think that the fact that this is a board-centric game that also has 2 lanes, you are definitely sacrificing a fair amount of tempo in order to build your resources instead of putting stuff on the board.
So yeah, I mean, you can ignore all those little guys until they all get restore 1. Then right. Suddenly a little bit scarier too. But yeah, it's fun whenever you have multiple aspects you have to consider defending and attacking via. And a lot of games have this. Legend of the Five Rings, which is a LCG that, well, it was a TCG way back when. Then Fantasy Flight made an LCG for a while with it. But you had 2 forms of attacking. You had military and political. And so you had to keep in mind, all right, well, if I put this into the military side of things, I'm going to open myself up to the potential damage of the political side. And so this has ground and space. So you have that same kind of dynamic, which is, it's just really fun. It seems really hard the first couple games, and then you kind of get the hang of it. But I like the way it makes you think.
What I'm curious about is whether this aspect seems like a slower game type to you or a faster game type to you, because board presence and such usually alludes to building a quick board, being aggressive in that regard. And obviously if you're dropping something like home 1 late and we don't know what else is coming down the board in terms of big baddies that might be able to help everything, but ultimately you're already having a board that is going to get more threatening as time goes by. And as you're ramping, there's ramp in the degree of I might drop 1 or 2 defensive related tactics early in order to, stall out your aggression until I get to my big things. But that's a slower game. That's like the Druid game in Hearthstone of just get to 10 mana as fast as possible, then start pumping the board up with humongous threats. This doesn't seem like that. I think that this is a faster game type, that the ramp aspect of developing more resources is purely so that you can drop that home 1 to make everything just feel unbeatable, where now even if your unit dies, you're getting a lot of value out of it. I feel like the command to me is leaning closer to an aggressive build. But again, we don't have all the cards. And when we see cards like DJ Death Star, which, by the way, Charmer, DJ Death Star is now what people are calling this card, which is great. Ever since that throwaway line where I'm like, this dude looks like he's part of like Daft Punk, and you're like, yeah, it's DJ Death Star. That is what the name of the card is now. So we got to be happy about it. It does fit.
He's definitely at a club in space somewhere. Yeah, no doubt.
But that's a dude that I think is just one of those quick dudes to jam on the board. When he dies, great, you kind of want him to. But the early game presence and the early game kind of go wide weenie approach is looks like that's the way that this is going to go from what we see so far. But maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I wonder, because it depends on how you build, right? Because you can certainly build in a command way that is focused on extending the game. If you think about something like Command Heroism, you've got a lot of restore, you've got a lot of shields coming out. You could, use command to really augment a longer game kind of strategy. But on the other hand, you're absolutely right that you could go the other way too. Throwing experience points around, focusing on dealing free damage essentially to your opponent's units and things. So I think on the light side, on the rebel side, you could be looking at going a little bit longer. And on the villainy side, on the dark side of the force, you could look at kind of making things a little bit more aggressive. But I think that's another one of the selling points for this, is that it does really kind of cover both sides, and you can approach it in a balanced way, or you can kind of lean into one of the two, it seems like, with command, and style your gameplay towards that. So I like the flexibility.
I think that in a vacuum, if we're talking solely about this particular aspect, this is basically pure speed. I think this is the second most aggressive aspect in the game, because I think aggression is going to, fit that bill, be number one. Again, we won't find out for sure until we see some more cards, but all things point in that direction. But after that,
if aggression isn't the most aggressive aspect,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Right. But after that, like if you're talking in a vacuum, just for this aspect, all this thing cares about is production, whether that is producing resources on the board, producing units on the board. It wants you to get to your game state now. And it's going to speed things up by getting resources faster and finding units faster for you to do that. Again, like what Doe is saying, it depends on what you pair it with. If you take this and you combine it with Vigilance, where the units that you are finding and playing have Sentinel and you're slowing down the pace of the game, then it'll be a slower gameplay, right? But there's also entirely ways that this could be a swarm aspect. I also think that this could very much be a combo-oriented aspect. I know we haven't seen much in that regard yet, but when I see prepare to take off, for example, I just see a combo tool, right? Again, if we want to dig through our deck, that's a great way to do it. And if your combo requires resources, this is a great aspect to do that. If this, combo you're trying to pull off requires you to have key units on the board, right? Because again, this is a board-centric game. If your units have died, well, so far the recursion we've seen is in command for taking units from the, discard pile, either putting them into play or putting them back into our hand. That's in command as well. So I'm looking at this and saying, in a vacuum, I think this wants faster gameplay. And it's just, either get to your bombs faster, get to your combo faster, or puke units onto the board faster.
It's a good way to look at it. I mentioned Thrawn as a command-oriented unit. I don't know if there's anything else that you, in your minds, that would, like characters that we haven't seen yet, that might, like the Executor, perhaps, as a ship. Not the Executor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
That'll be out there. The Executor has to be a villainy command ship, in my opinion. It could be. No, it's got to be villainy command. It's the flagship. It is the command ship of the Empire. So I was like, can you work it into aggression? No, I don't think so. I think it would have to be command villainy personally. I'm trying to think of other options for command type of units. General. Oh no, wait, never mind.
What's interesting to me is like, I fully expect Jabba, for example, to be cunning and villainy, but I could see him be a command unit. He's just sitting around giving orders all day, right? I just don't think that he's like that inspiring level of command. So I still fully expect him to be, cunning villainy. I think he's going to fit in with that kind of fringe bounty hunter style a bit more anyway. But outside of that, I would say like in the first set, we probably have a bunch covered. In the future, I would look for units like Padme, right? I think that she very well could be a command unit, for example. Queen Amidala, I guess I should say. Padme might be something different if they want to split that up. So Queen Amidala, I would expect to be like a heroism command unit.
Mace Windu, I think.
Yeah.
Mace,
Yoda.
We have a Yoda already.
Yoda leader, though.
Oh, yes.
Could be command heroism. Yeah.
See, the way that I pictured the Jabba thing is Jabba is cunning and villainy. I think he delegates to Bib Fortuna, who is command. So Bib Fortuna is the one doing all giving out all the orders, whereas the cunning aspect is more so Jabba. But
or like Lobot. If we had a Lobot leader, he could be command vigilance.
Oh, yes. Yes. Because he has like that, like he has like those like Google that like Google visor going thing, but it's on backwards. Well, he's got the Geordie LaForges on backwards.
It's apparently, according to the Decipher CCG, it's because he was a criminal that was forcibly reformed with brain-altering implants. So there you go. Went from criminal to middle manager via cybernetic augments.
I mean, that's
Star Wars.
That's how you get promoted at Tesla. So I'm just saying.
There you go.
I just picture the people at Decipher all in a boardroom. They're like, all right, how do we fill this lore box? I don't know. Let's talk about that thing on his head. What is it? I don't know. Maybe it's like, maybe it helps him do stuff like a calculator. All right, but hold on a second. What if he was criminal?
Should we read? I've got this Jabba's Palace. Should we read some lore real quick?
Yeah.
The lore for the Weequay hunter. There you go. To maintain their religious practices, Weequay hunters capture banthas. The beasts are then sacrificed as part of a battle ceremony. Tusken Raiders tend not to appreciate this. It's on the card. It's canon. It's canon. All right.
I like how they're already just inciting religious warfare between like two warring tribes.
Yeah. How about the you ever want to learn about the Gran, the three-eyed, kind of guys?
Grand Moff Tarkin?
No, different. That's a different one. From an ancient civilization, pacifists, those who commit acts of violence, are banished from their home planet. Kinyan organizes peaceful protests against the Empire. There you go. Who knew?
Never worked.
It's not a real protest against the Empire, though, because if the Empire was present for said protest, then there would be no protest. It would be...
Yeah, you know what they did?
Sorry.
They would have a very American response. I'll put it that way.
All the Grands do is they just put hashtag thoughts and prayers and tweet that out, and that's their peaceful protest. Completely off a burner account, so nobody finds them.
I just read the lore for Princess Leia Organa. This
Lay
is
it on
the
us.
Classic, the Bikini Leia one. So their lore for this one is captured by Jabba. Princess Leia provided a distraction for his hench beings, waiting for the first chance to escape. Really made Jabba's tail wiggle. I mean, that was true, but the thing is, it was wiggling when she was choking him to death. So that's kind of like a double meaning, kind of inside joke thing if you know the movies. But Decipher your card lore. Was just great.
if now it's not actually there as a subtitle, but if you translate the like Huttese when he's getting choked, he actually says "harder, mommy." But
that's not true.
Obviously not. I'm just saying if we're gonna.
There are people out there that are ready to believe that. You got to be careful saying
in the comments. Tell us about that vibro axe, and we'll.
Yeah, we had most chokeable officer, but I guess we could have expanded it to most chokeable character because Jabba did die via asphyxiation.
All right, well
there you go. A lot of that going on in Star Wars.
Or Leia Organa asphyxiation.
Who else did she choke?
No, I mean that's Jabba. Like he died by Leia Organa asphyxiation. Right.
I swear to God.
Anyway.
No, we just Doa. I'm just telling you, we just ignore him and we move on. That's how we do this.
Oh.
We love you, Charmer, so much. Hey.
Really make my tail wiggle.
Yeah. God damn it. Hey, when you're the leader of a crime syndicate, Charmer?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, obviously.
I mean, wait.
I mean, obviously.
There goes my witness protection.
And all of a sudden, your best bounty hunter just gets, yeeted into the side of your space yacht, and all of a sudden there's a chain wrapped around your neck. What do you say in that situation?
Apparently harder, mommy.
Well, I think you do the 1990s like record scratch, like in Jabba's voice. Yeah, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I ended up in this situation. That's what else do you do?
It all started when this farm boy made me an offer and gave me these two droids.
It all started when I decided to keep a pet rancor.
There was a plan here, so we could move on. Charmer.
Well, you know what? I have a bad feeling about your plan.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
What?
All right, there we go. We got there.
Wonderful.
This has been quite the episode.
It's been a great episode. We pulled a main character randomly out of a 25-year-old pack. We we talked a lot about being excited about the game. It's good stuff.
I'm opening this next episode, okay? This
Young
pack
Jedi.
of Young Jedi. Which,
wow.
I mean, and we'll do a giveaway, so keep an eye out on our Twitter. But we do have a mailbag, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Bad Feeling Mailbag. You can send us your questions, wamparadiopodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter @wamparadio. Send us your questions. We'd love to answer them. And this one is from our friend Board Play J, asking, there seems to be a lot of gameplay on what looks like Tabletop Simulator and Felt Table, I believe both, just in case. I have been staying away from them because all the starter cards have not been revealed. What is your take on these plays? Yay or nay? So I'm assuming this is more so along the lines of playing the game early, playing it on an unlicensed, unofficial platform. We all have experience doing this. What are your thoughts? Who wants to take a stab at this first?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are very excited about this game, and so people are going to find a way to play it if there's no official means available. So there's a lot of people doing print and play out there as well, and you know, I think if you are the company making the game, it's an encouraging sign, right? Because if anything, it's going to be a recruitment tool, right? It's going to be a way for people to say, "Hey, this is coming out. I want to kind of try it out, play it with me," and you know, it's theoretically going to get more people in it. So yeah, I think I don't think if I were making the game, I would be excited to see things like this happening because it takes effort to make these things, right? So the fact that people are out there doing it means there's a lot of excitement about playing the game to the extent that people are already enabling, you know, ways for them to get a little bit of a taste of it too. So yeah, I think it's a positive for sure.
I think it's a positive as well. The only hesitation that I would give anybody would just be to take with a grain of salt what your results are.
Oh yeah.
There's an entire set really that's still yet to be revealed. And as you kind of play these games, like it's very good for learning the game, getting the basics down, learning the mechanics, things like that. But what you don't want to do is start to think like you've solved the meta or anything before the game has come out, because not only is there a lot of cards yet to be revealed, but one of the things that happens when you are playtesting early, you're only playing with other people that are like ultra enthusiastic about the game. And the downside to that is that your playtesting becomes very incestuous. You only have like your view of the game state. And then when the game launches and it goes wide, you run into people who play differently, have different local metas, all of that. And then you'll find that the landscape of the game changes drastically. So use it to learn to play the game, use it to enjoy playing the game. But don't think that it's going to like lead you to amazing tournament wins a year down the road or anything.
I genuinely believe, and again, we all come from playing a lot of Flesh and Blood, where Talishar.net is essentially exploded onto the scene as an unofficial, I believe the technical term for it is a rules enforcement platform that just is it's a browser-based way to play the game. But once people discovered it and it got cleaned up after its first few iterations, it became exceptionally valuable because it's hard to play a game in paper when you don't have people around you to play based on schedules, etc. I think that it's a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing. And I'm really hoping that if FFG is not going to dive into the official digital route for this eventually, that they just let it be. And I say that as on the other side of the coin, the people who are developing this or do develop something like Talishar or Pixelborn for Lorcana or all these other like One Piece TCG Simulator, if you're doing this, it's a very dangerous territory that you're encroaching on. You have to be ready to abandon it at the first pushback from the creator of the game, which is FFG. However, oftentimes, and we've seen this with Flesh and Blood is very aware that there are thousands of games going on daily on Talishar, but Talishar is not profiting by it. They are they have a Patreon that covers their server costs, and they do not make any money off of it. So Flesh and Blood is completely aware that it exists, and they are aware also that it is a good thing because it gives players an outlet to play the game whenever they want. I think it's I have to agree with both of you. It is a exceptionally good thing. People want to play it. It's a paper game. It can be expensive. Let people play it. Now, obviously, tournaments, things like that, those are going to be played in paper. That's not going to affect it. So, on the whole, it's a great thing. The more people playing a game, the better. That is just the bedrock of any of these arguments that need to be made.
Yeah, I think one word of caution too, if you're playing like Star Wars Unlimited on TTS and stuff too, is that like because there are still some things that are a little bit unclear about some rules resolutions and things, you have to be careful too that you're not ingraining wrong information into your play as well, or some bad habits and things. So again, with that stuff out there, I think it's fine to play around with it, but you are, like Charm3r said, only getting a taste of the game. You are not getting the actual game experience. So so enjoy, but keep in mind the context in which you're enjoying it. Yeah,
you're getting the RC Cola instead of the Coca-Cola Classic.
Sure,
right? But it's
just
fun.
the taste, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because again, the rules enforcements, etc. If those are built into it, TTS. The thing about TTS, it's literally just you have to manually keep track of everything. Whereas
different from something like Talishar.
Correct. And I get what you're saying because Talishar makes people either lazy or ignorant of the rules because everything's done for them, and that can come back to haunt you. I've seen enough tweets of people saying like, "I lost my game because on Talishar it does this." Well, sorry, like we don't know what to tell you.
I've played 0 games on Talishar. Like I just don't like playing card games, digitally if there is a paper version, because like one of the whole reasons I play paper card games is to be, in person playing like in a room with a bunch of other nerds, right? All playing card games. Like that's the experience I want. So I'm not the type that would play that stuff anyway. So there are people out there, and one of the reasons is like you just said, like I don't want to have rules done for me. I want to make sure I remember all that stuff so that when I am playing in person, I'm, at the top of my game. Because it can be kind of a detrimental thing to get too used to playing a digital version where everything is, mathed out for you whenever you play a card. So yeah, got to be careful.
Charm3r, are you potentially locked? Are you loaded? Are you ready to rock and roll? Because this has been another exquisite episode of Wampa Radio. So thanks so much for the submission to the mailbag. We're gonna take a look at it again next week. We pulled a pack fresh Princess Leia Organa from Jabba's Palace. There we go. Perfect.
Wonderful.
What a show this was. So again, thanks to everybody for listening. Again, the best way to support us, obviously, other than just following along on our journey here, give us a 5-star review on whatever platform that you have us on, Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever it is. It helps us immensely, and it costs you nothing. So we thank you for that. And again, thanks just to everybody for listening. And for all the team here at Wampa Radio, don't forget,
may the Force be with you.